Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 67, A at the top of the page, with the words Ha Lav Hachi. One can infer, but if it were not for this decree, the beam would have to be returned to the owner as is, notwithstanding its change in name. Rav Yosef said this is not a genuine change in name, as a beam retains its name even after it is inserted into a building, as it is taught in a Braita with regard to two obscure terms. The verse states, "And there were narrow windows and palm trees on the one side, and on the other side, on the sides of the porch, there were also tzalot of the house, and the ubim. Tzalot habayit, elu hamelatetin, v'ha'ubim elu hamorishot." Ezekiel 41:26. Tzalot of the house, these are the casings, and the ubim, these are the beams. This shows that a beam can retain its name even after it has been built into a house. Rabbi Zera said a different answer. With regard to a change in name, a change in which the item can revert to its original state is not considered enough of a change for the thief to acquire the stolen item. Since the joist can be removed and revert to being called a beam, it is not considered a true change of name. The Gemara asks, and is a change in name in which the item does not revert to its original state really considered a change? But there is the case of a water duct where it was initially called a log, ketzitza, and now it is called a duct. And it is taught in a Braita, a duct, that one hollowed out and afterward attached to the ground or to a building invalidates a ritual bath through the water it channels to the bath. The water in a ritual bath must be gathered directly from rain or a stream, but not drawn with vessels. If one hollowed out a log and used it to channel water into the bath, this is considered drawn water, as he used a vessel. By contrast, if one attached it first and afterward hollowed it out, it does not invalidate the ritual bath. Before the log was hollowed out, it was already attached to and considered part of the ground, and therefore the act of hollowing it out does not turn it into a vessel. The Gemara states its question. And if you say that a change in name is considered a matter of significance, that is, it is considered a real change in the item, and even if one attached the log first and afterward hollowed it out, the ritual bath should also be invalid. Since hollowing out the log leads to a change in name, it should be considered a new vessel at that point. The Gemara answers, halacha, that drawn water may not be used for a ritual bath is different, as it applies by rabbinic law, and consequently the sages were lenient in this case. The Gemara asks, if so, then even the first clause, where the log was hollowed out before being attached, it should be permitted as well. The Gemara answers there is a difference between the two cases. There, in the first clause, the log had actually had the status of a vessel, while it was still detached. Here, in the second case, it did not have the status of a vessel while it was detached, but only after it became attached to the ground, and therefore the sages were lenient. The Gemara raises an objection against Rav Yosef's opinion that the owner's despair that he will recover stolen items does not affect acquisition for the thief. For Braita, with regard to a thief, a robber, and one who forces people to sell items against their will, their consecration of the items they obtained in these manners is a valid consecration, and the truma that they separate from the produce they obtain in these matters is a valid truma, and the tithes that they separate from those foods are valid tithes. Consecrations, trumot, and tithes must be performed by the owner of the item in question. Since there was no physical change in these items, this shows that the thief is considered the new owner merely by virtue of the owner's despair of recovery. The sages say, in answer to this question there, in those involving consecrations, trumot, and tithes, there's a change in the name of the stolen item, as initially stolen food was called untithed produce from which truma and tithes have not been separated, and now it is called truma or tithe. With regard to consecration, it was initially called non-sacred property, and now it is called consecrated property. Rav Chizda says that Rabbi Yochanan says, from where is it derived that a change in a stolen item causes the thief to acquire it? As it is stated, and he shall return the item that he took by robbery. Leviticus 5:23. What is the meaning of the verse? What is the meaning when the verse states the seemingly superfluous phrase of that he took by robbery? It teaches us that only if the item is in the same state as when he took it by robbery, he must return it. But if not, he required to pay only money. The stolen item remains to his keep. The Gemara asks, with regard to this derivation, but this phrase that he took by robbery, he required to exclude the case of an item stolen by one's father. That is, that when a son returns an item or money that his father had stolen, he does not add 1/5 to the principal amount of that which his father stole. The passage in question addresses one who stole and took a false oath. This individual is obligated to add 1/5 to the amount that he stole. See Leviticus 5:21. The apparently redundant phrase that he took by robbery teaches that the requirement to add 1/5 applies only to the sinner himself and not to his heirs. See 104b. The Gemara answers, if so, if this verse teaches only that halacha, let the merciful alone write merely, and he shall return his stolen item. As from that phrase alone, it could be derived that an heir does not have to add 1/5. Why do I need the Torah to write the expression that he took by robbery? One must therefore conclude two conclusions from this verse. A son need not add 1/5, and to change a stolen item effects acquisition for the thief. Because Amri and there are those who say a different version of the above statement. Rav Chizda says that Rabbi Yochanan says, from where is it derived that a change in a stolen item does not cause the thief to acquire it? As it is stated, and he shall return the stolen item that he took by robbery, Leviticus 5:23, from which it may be interfered. But it is written he took by robbery, which indicates that, on the contrary, the item need be returned only if it is in a particular state. So when it was stolen, when it was stolen, the Gemara answers that phrase is required to teach another halacha. One adds 1/5 upon returning his own stolen item, concerning which he had taken a false oath, but he does not add 1/5 upon returning something that was stolen by his father. Ula says, from where is it derived that the owner's despair of recovering his stolen item is not cause the thief to acquire it, as stated from the criticism of the Jewish people for bringing inferior animals as offerings, and you have brought that which is stolen, the lame and the sick, Malachi 1:13, from the juxtaposition of these carries cases, it may be derived that a stolen animal is similar to a lame animal, just as a lame animal has no rectification at all with regard to its disqualification of an offering.